Natasha.
Debbie.
Show.
The show.
Welcome to it. Just two patriotic girls.
Learning about the world.
So please, don't take us the wrong way.
Hello. Welcome to the Natasha and Debbie show. The last episode of the year.
Dang it. I was going to totally it's our last episode, guys, of the year. Yeah. But it is, either way.
It is.
It's
been a great year. Hopefully you guys have had fun with us. Learned a lot.
Yeah, we did. Laughed a lot. Cried a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We did a lot of things.
Ate a lot of stuff.
Went a lot of places.
Gained a lot of weight. Lost some of the weight. Gained it back. Thanks, Germany and UK. And we'll be going other places this next new year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we will be here on New Year's Day, by the way. So join us for an episode on that day, which is New Year's Day.
Wednesday, the 1st.
Yeah. So today, before we get started, if you don't mind, as always, that like button would be greatly appreciated.
It needs some love.
It does.
Needs some love.
Yeah.
And also consider subscribing because it's absolutely free.
Mm-hmm. What are we learning today, Debbie?
We are going to learn.
I don't know what's wrong with me, sorry.
Why Britain is the center of the world.
Y'all don't have big enough heads as it is, do you?
Right?
Yeah, we invented this. Now we're the center of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We're just over here hanging out, just learning about all this,
We're
going,
just on the sidelines.
Yep. We're just like chilling.
Hey, Britain is great. So that's why we're here learning so much about it.
It's true. I don't know what this video has anything to do with about anything other than it being the center of the world. Center of the world, what? I think it has to do with time.
Center of time?
I don't get that. Who decides that? Are they going to tell us that?
I don't know.
I don't know. But I just want to know why Britain is the center of the world. And that's what we're going to find out now.
This is my desk. I sit here all day and I work and I look at this map whenever I'm daydreaming. I just look at this map. I bought this map off eBay and it was in like an elementary school and now it's in my office.
I want a map like that.
I notice something every time I look at it that kind of irks me. That something is this. This zero. This zero, which is not just one number, but it's actually a corresponding line that looks like this.
Oh, look where it goes.
Let's back up here for a second. The Earth is divided into lines.
Make it into
Sometimes they're curved like they are on my map. And whether or not they're curved or straight has to do with this concept of projection.
Curved or straight? In the comments, let us know. What? I told you I was going to be cheeky. More of a cheeky Natasha, which is more of who I am anyway. Just asking a simple question.
Which I'm not going to talk about here. I've talked about plenty using a knife and a globe back in an old Vox video that I made. But just know that the Earth is divided up into lines, latitude and longitude lines, ones that go up and down and ones that go from side to side. All of these lines in the grid have a number associated with them. So for the up and down lines, there's a 0 point, and then anywhere to the right of that or east of that starts to go up from 0 to 180 with a little E next to it for east of the 0 line. And then everything to the left or the west of it has the same thing, 0 to 180 with a W for west, okay? That center point is the 0 point from which all east and west things are measured. The same thing for these side-to-side lines. If you go up from here, you're going to start to get higher and higher until you get to 180 degrees north. Or if you go south, you will go 180 degrees south, which is the South Pole. Finding out where the 0 point should be for these horizontal lines is actually quite easy. The Earth has these two natural poles, which make for a natural top and bottom of the Earth. And halfway in between those two poles,
Other than the 0 being on over the United Kingdom right now, I'm feeling a little like, what's the word I want to use? I feel like I'm being talked to in a condescending way. Like I don't already know this. Like I didn't learn this in early times in school. I know this stuff.
Yes, I know where the lines are and
I
what
know.
they mean.
I know how to read longitude,
But
latitude.
who did decide? Who did decide
And
where
that's
zero is?
what I'm wondering. I don't know.
Poles, you have this perfect center point, the equator, which is a very natural place to put this 0 point and to measure everything from. The up and down lines are totally arbitrary where you decide them. Like, who's to say that
Sorry.
like it couldn't be right here in Russia and this could be 0 and everything could go west and east from here?
Well, it's not the middle.
Or Japan, for
Center.
that matter. Well, in fact, a long time ago, that's how it used to be.
What?
These maps with these grids were really, really important for navigating the world, and so everyone had to choose a 0 point. And most would just make their capital or their home base the 0 point. If you lived in Japan, you would just make Japan the 0 point, and the rest of the coordinates would be measured against that 1 0 point, which was Japan. And same if you lived in France or Washington, D.C. This was fine because back then countries kind of just fought wars and competed with each other. They weren't really collaborating
True.
or aligning or trading as much as they do today. And so everyone could just have their own maps centered around their place, and they did just fine. But then, around the 1800s, a few things started to happen that completely changed everything.
Such a-
First, countries and empires, instead of just competing and fighting with each other, started to actually say, like, we should align with each other and trade and be friends because that's better for everyone. Pair this with the fact that map making and sea navigation was becoming like a big industry. It was no longer just the king ordering maps to be made for their like expeditions, but now it was like private businesses going out and doing things that private businesses do. And so there was now like a demand for good seafaring maps. In short, map making was trending. Seems like a pretty good time to be alive. Okay, and there was one more thing that was happening around this time that was super important, which is this.
Okay.
Trains everywhere. Trains were just like popping up everywhere. And trains were also trending. People were now able to travel like across the country, not just like on their horses, but on this whole system of trains where you could buy a ticket, get on a train.
So as long as you were in maps or trains,
You were
good to
trending.
go.
And you were making money.
That's right.
I mean, I'm sure there's other things too, right? But
I would think, but that's pretty cool.
And end up somewhere hundreds of miles away. And you know what trains run on, besides coal, is time. Timetables, schedules. How do you know when your train's gonna arrive and when it's gonna leave and when it's gonna get there?
This leads us to where we're-
Some universal set time. The problem is, back in the 1800s, there was no universal set
So I was
time.
right.
Check out this piece of paper. Today, all of these cities and towns would be just on Eastern Standard Time, one time zone. But back then, every town had their own time, depending on when it was noon for them. If they were a little bit east or a little bit west of here, that would be different than in Washington, D.C.
huh?
That would have been so confusing.
What?
Yeah, look at that. Like,
Explain this to me like I'm 2 right now. My brain just went somewhere else. My brain's somewhere else.
Just-
I'm physically here. My brain is not.
just every town would have a different time.
Why?
I guess for how many degrees they moved away.
Is that what it
from
is, or is
wherever.
this the
Probably.
train schedule though? So,
Well-
or did it have to do with the transportation system?
It says noon in Washington D.C. Then it would be 12:24 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Well, yeah, because it's the same time.
But why 24?
I don't know.
So confusing.
I don't get it. I got a
Tell
headache
us
again.
more.
Total nightmare for trains. The lifeblood of trains is time. And this time mishmash just wasn't going to work. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with this?
Wait, though, wasn't that times that you were just talking about, like 11:24 or 12:24? Wasn't that when the train was coming or whatever?
No, it was saying the time in Washington D.C. is
Seriously?
noon,
No,
and every other town had a different time.
that doesn't make sense. You can't change. I'm really back
That's
on that.
the way it was.
I don't get it.
Just wasn't going to work. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with this?
Yeah, talk to me.
Look at this guy.
Hello, Chester.
You probably don't know who this person is. I didn't know who this person was. He was the US president that no one remembers.
What?
This US president in the late
We had a president named Chester. President Chester.
I guess we did. I don't remember Chester Arthur.
I've never heard that name in my life.
Please do tell us more, sir.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I've been intrigued, but I'm more intrigued than I was before I was intrigued. The first time I was intrigued because I'm extra intrigued now. It's a fact. Chester. What lovely chops you have, Chester.
He does have some nice chops.
Sorry, we're admiring facial hair. You guys call this chops? They're not really a thing, so you probably call them nothing since no one really has them anymore. Moving on to the video.
You probably don't know who this person is. I didn't know who this person was. He was the US president that no one remembers. This US president in the late 1800s saw a problem with all of this. He realized that having a bunch of different maps with a bunch of different 0 points based on whoever was making it was a problem. And he realized that not having a universal time zone or some sort of universal way of making the same time for everyone was also a problem. So he invited 41 countries to come here to Washington, D.C., where I live.
I just want to see what countries. We got Austria, Hungary, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, British India, Canada, Guatemala, Hawaii, Italy, Japan, Liberia, Mexico, Netherlands, Ottoman Empire, Paraguay, Russia, Salvador, San Domingo, Spain, Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, United States, Venezuela. Okay, to come to New York.
41 countries to come here to Washington, D.C., where I live, and to sit around and think and talk about where this 0 point should be. Where should the center of the world be so that we can measure time as well as navigation? All maps could be normalized to this one spot. So after a moment of a bunch of white dudes sitting around in a room in Washington, D.C., which is kind of what's happening today in Washington, D.C., they came to a vote. And that vote, almost unanimously, said that the 0 line should be right here.
This is not
this
what I
line,
expected.
if you zoom in, goes right through London, England. It actually goes through a little outskirts town called Greenwich. Greenwich is the home of the Royal Observatory of the...
I get it now. Greenwich Mean Time, GMT time.
Ah. Way to put that one together. I'm not so up on my time zones.
Light bulbs
Now
are
we
just
get it.
going, it's firecrackers in my head. Or a stroke. OMG.
That makes sense now.
It's like the giant puzzle pieces still just keep coming together of all the stuff that we know here in our daily lives and things we've learned all of our lives.
Right.
Every time we do videos, just learn it all. It all comes together like that. It's like a little handshake. Huh.
And it's not like something you think about all the time, like who started the time zone stuff? I mean,
However,
now we know.
and now we know that the United States gave that to you. You're welcome. Do not get mad. But hey, it was our really cherished, beloved, celebrated
Chester Arthur.
President, Chester Arthur, that we all talk about all the time. We love that guy. He's great.
I mean,
we,
you know,
went for a good old Chester
President
Arthur.
Arthur.
Yeah, American. Because you have to be American to be the president. So no one say, oh, he was born in Britain. No, he wasn't. Happen to know that for a fact. I don't even have to look that up. That's an American thing I knew. I knew that. But yeah, that guy said, you know what? We're going to give this to him. I'm just messing. I'm taking the piss. Okay? It seems like an unladylike thing to say, but I am. Is there a female, more feminine version of taking the piss to say?
I don't know.
I want to know what it is. This is not what I expected. This is fascinating, and I'm loving this.
I don't know. That's good information.
Greenwich Mean Time. Huh.
She goes through a little outskirts town called Greenwich. Greenwich is the home of the Royal Observatory of the British Empire. This would be the place where the prime meridian, or the 0 point for the entire world, east and west, would start. Every country...
I haven't heard that word prime meridian since I was in elementary school. I'm like, I forgot that existed. Sorry.
Country at the conference agreed that this should be the case, except for the Dominican Republic, at that time called Santo Domingo. they said no. They were the one country that didn't like this proposal. And France and Brazil actually abstained diplomatically, which was kind of them saying like, oh, we don't agree with this. France continued to make their maps with Paris as the center point, but eventually they got on board as well. So that gets to the crux of my big question of why the 0 right there, which is a bunch of people voted on it. But why were they so down with Britain having the 0 point being the center of the world? Well, the answer is because it was 1884, and Britain was just really good at the ocean. The British Empire was by far...
That is one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard in any video we've done. Britain is just really good at the ocean.
That is good.
Britain. Royal Navy.
Yes.
That's a fact. I mean, he's not wrong.
Is.
He's not wrong.
No, you can't argue with that.
That's hilarious.
It's undeniable.
It's true.
And Britain was just really good at the ocean. The British Empire was by far the biggest, most powerful navy. It had the most experience with maps and ocean faring. And so it was kind of a natural choice to let Britain, the king of the ocean, have this center point. And
let's just stroke that ego.
King of the ocean.
King of the ocean now, center of the world.
King of the ocean.
Inventors of all things.
Center of time.
And I see you Scottish friends. Yeah, center of time. Huh. Okay.
And from then on, maps started to be drafted with Greenwich, this royal observatory, as the center point for the east-west divide in the world. Over time, this exact point, exactly where it's drawn, has shifted a tiny bit because of better tools to measure things. And so it's actually like not literally on the Royal Observatory anymore, but it's effectively in the same place that was drawn in this 1884 conference. But they also established that all time in the entire world would be measured against this same spot, Greenwich. Noon at Greenwich, at the Royal Observatory, would be the peg against which all other time was set. They called this Greenwich Mean Time. So you end up getting a map that looks like this.
Holy crap.
That makes sense.
Zoom in and you see Greenwich is right here. That's GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Okay. You go west of here and you start to get GMT -1 or -2, -3.
We're -5.
You can come all the way back to the east coast of the United States, and this time zone is Greenwich Mean Time -5 right now. Sometimes it's -4 if there's daylight.
Yeah, daylight savings time is -4 for. So this way you can help to. Debbie always forgets the time in London and the UK, and I'm like, 5 hours
I
difference.
just need to know 4 or 5 hour difference.
Now you know. So there you go. It's stuck in your head.
Yeah, until we're in daylight savings times, and then it's 4.
It's only for a couple weeks, though.
No.
It's only for a couple weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks.
Daylight savings and daylight savings is dumb. And
Daylight savings is dumb.
But you get the idea. The more you go west, you go back from Greenwich Mean Time. If you go east, it's the opposite. You go forward to Greenwich Mean Time. So if it's noon at
Sweden
Greenwich,
is 1
then
plus
this
1?
next time zone, it'll be 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., etc. So these time zones have been marked up in these kind of strange shapes. Eventually, if you go 12 steps away from Greenwich, 12 time zones, you'll end up here at this mess.
Yeah, what is that?
This mess is the International Date
Oh,
Line.
yeah, I remember that.
This is where Greenwich Mean Time +12 or -12 ends up at this line, which is where a new day starts. So let me give you an example of what this would look like. Imagine it's 4 p.m. in Greenwich, England, right here at this Royal Observatory.
It's 11 a.m. here.
It's 4 p.m. GMT on May 28th. If anyone wants to send me a birthday gift, May 28th. May 28th. It's May 28th at 4 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. Sitting, chilling in the Royal Observatory, which I've never actually been to. I need to go to the Royal Observatory.
So do we.
I need to go to the Royal Observatory. I'm going to do that this year.
You should go, sir.
At some point. Okay, so it's 4 p.m., May 28th. Across the ocean here in Washington, D.C. at that time, you can see that we go from 4 p.m. -5, so 11 a.m. Okay, so it's 11 a.m. here in Washington, D.C. at that exact time on May 28th. Head across the United States to the west coast of the United States to Seattle or Portland, and right there it's 3 hours earlier than it is here. You're now at 8 a.m. So it's 8 a.m. here, it's still 4 p.m. in Greenwich. It's still 4 p.m. in London. Now you head into the Pacific Ocean, keep going west until you get to French Polynesia, at which time
May
it's
29th.
5 in the morning. You're now GMT
Once you get
-11,
over
it's
the date
5
line.
in the morning. And then you get right up to this messy line. If you were to be in the Baker Islands, which is like a US, like random uninhabited island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you would be at 4 a.m. So it's 4 p.m. over in Greenwich, it's 4 a.m. on this random island in the Pacific. So then you cross this messy looking line, it's still 4 a.m., but now it's the next day. It's May 29th at 4 a.m. Here in Fiji, at the same time, 4 p.m. at Greenwich, it's now 4 a.m. the next day, May 29th. So we went from being 12 hours behind Greenwich to being 12 hours in front of Greenwich just by going over this international date line. You could do this exact same thing going the other way. Start heading east and you see that now it's 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. Head all the way over into Asia, and now you're getting closer to seeing how that 4 a.m. happens when you get over to Fiji. Now the caveat to all of this is, of course, is that some of these countries switch by an hour for like daylight savings type things and whatever, but ignore that. Imagine there wasn't daylight savings.
I wish
right
I
now
could.
In this moment where daylight savings is at least ended in the United States, this holds across the whole world. Someday I'll make a video about this whole messy debacle. But the point of all of this is to say that because of this conference in 1884 to reconcile train timetables and to make maps more uniform, we now have this navigation and time system that rules our whole world. And Britain is just sitting at the center of it, of course. The British Empire may have fallen and the world has moved on from Britain being the center of the world in a lot of ways, but it's still technically the center of the world in a lot of ways. I'm gonna put some links in the description for some of these cool tools that kind of help visualize time zones if you're interested in that sort of thing. But yeah, my question has been answered. I actually didn't know the answer to this question and I went on a deep dive and now I know. So now I'll sit at my desk and I will know the answer to why it's 0, and I think that was worth it. So thanks.
I'm so glad he shared that with us.
That was freaking great. I know that video has been reacted to by quite a few people for quite a while, but you know, we do things when we want to do things. And this was a time when we wanted to do it.
That was so cool to learn all that. And I have to say that the international dateline confuses me.
Yeah, well, I wonder if
that.
he did do a video on that. If he did, I want to watch it because I don't fully understand it myself. It's all kind of weird.
Especially how it's all square out there in the middle of the ocean. Why is that square?
Well, it's like square, but then it's not. And then I
don't understand the lines. But how cool that President Chester.
Good old Chester.
Everybody together.
Yeah, American guy.
Could you imagine if we were nowadays with no like standard set time? Like
we'd be screwed.
No idea what time.
Well, eventually we had to do it, but so I don't know. I really thought that was really, really interesting. I was fascinated throughout the whole thing. If you liked that, please hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel. It is free still. I don't know. I don't know.
It came down to the trains and the train schedule.
Yeah, well, just you had to get that stuff right. You had to have transportation making sense, and it's something that needed to be done. I'm glad the United States was the ones to make sure to get it done. I have to give us some sort of credit here, damn it. You have to see the title of this video. Why is Britain the center of the world? I'm going to give some credit to us. Hey, it's true. It needs to happen. If you learned something there, I would love to know. I had no idea about this Chester Arthur guy.
No, sure didn't.
I need to go research this dude. We should do a whole video on Chester Arthur and his genius.
Maybe we'll do that on Patreon.
No, I don't think we will. I don't know if we will or not. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this episode. And we will see you. Let's do the bad jokes. You ready? See you next year. It'll be a whole year.
I know.
So we won't see you again for a whole year.
I'll see you next year. I'll talk to you next year.
Yeah, there's too many of those bad jokes. Whatever. We won't do it. Until then, as always, love like jazz.
Be as strong as Tyson.
Bye.
Bye.